Every night at 3:07 a.m., the door at the end of the hall opened on its own, and one night, she walked out of it herself. But how could that be? To uncover the truth, stay till the very end of this story. When Elena arrived at the house, dusk was bleeding into the trees. The countryside air was still, heavy with that late October quiet that comes just before winter decides to whisper its name. Her aunt's house sat crouched among the birches, old and angular, its windows clouded with years of solitude. It had been left to her in a will she hadn't expected. A place she barely remembered from childhood, just fragments. The scent of lavender, her aunt's soft humming, and a warning never to wander the east hallway after dark. Now, the house was hers and Milo's. Milo leapt from the car first, padding up the cracked stone steps, tail flicking like a curious metronome. Elena smiled at him, her small, steady anchor. When her parents died and the city's noise became unbearable, Milo had been her comfort, his warmth proof that something living still cared. Inside, the house smelled of cedar, dust, and faint rot. Shadows collected in corners like memories that had refused to die. The air was cooler than outside, and the silence had a weight to it, the kind that made one whisper without realizing it. She explored by lamplight. The kitchen was untouched, an old clock frozen at some forgotten hour. The study smelled faintly of books and rosewater. Upstairs, the bedrooms waited in rows of muted wallpaper and half-open doors. And then there was that door. At the far end of the narrow east hallway, past a framed portrait of her aunt turned slightly askew, stood a door with no handle. Its paint was peeling in slow, flaking curls. A small crack ran along the frame, just wide enough to show a sliver of darkness behind it. Elena felt it, that strange instinct that tells you when you're being watched, even when you're alone. She stared a moment too long before whispering to herself, storage maybe. She turned back, but Milo didn't. The cat had gone still, fur slightly raised, eyes locked on the door. A low, uncertain purr trembled in his throat, neither curiosity nor comfort, something in between. That night, she unpacked only what she needed, bedding, a kettle, a book she wouldn't read. The wind pushed softly against the old windows. Floorboards sighed like sleeping lungs. And somewhere in the distance of the house, a faint creak sounded, rhythmic and deliberate. At 3:07 a.m., she woke without knowing why. Milo was at the foot of the bed, tail stiff, ears forward. The sound came again, a slow creak that rose from beneath the floor. She followed his gaze toward the hallway. The air had changed. It felt denser, as if someone had opened a door between worlds and left it ajar. The creaking stopped. "Just wood," she whispered, forcing a laugh. Old houses do that. But the next night, and the one after, it came again. Always at 3:07, always from the same direction. By the fourth night, Milo had stopped sleeping altogether. He sat upright at the end of the hall every night, eyes fixed on that door that wasn't supposed to open. On the fifth night, Elena decided to know the truth. She set up her phone on the hallway table, angled toward the door. The red recording light blinked in the dark like a single, unblinking eye. At 3:07 a.m., she woke again, this time to silence. No creaking, no movement, only Milo's tense breathing at her feet. In the morning, she brewed tea, heart knocking softly against her ribs. She played the footage. The timestamp flicked from 3:06:307. At first, nothing. Just the empty hallway, washed in the gray glow of night. Then, slowly, the frame darkened, not because of light, but as if something stepped into view. From the far end, the door began to move. The paint cracked, the frame quivered, and from within the narrow seam, a pale hand slid out, groping the air. Elena's breath caught. Then she walked out. Herself, same hair, same nightgown, same weary expression, stepping softly from the door with Milo in her arms. But the Milo in her arms was utterly still, his eyes open and empty. The figure looked directly into the camera and smiled. Elena slammed her laptop shut, the sound echoing through the hollow rooms. Milo hissed, tail puffed. When she finally looked up, she realized something else, the air smelled different, damp, metallic, and somewhere behind her, down the east hallway, a faint click echoed, as if an old lock had finally given way. The door was no longer closed. The next day, the house felt altered. Not changed, exactly, remembering itself differently. Elena tried to reason with her mind. Sleep deprivation, old plumbing, suggestion. She whispered words like a prayer, trying to push back the panic curling in her chest. But Milo had stopped eating. He followed her everywhere, his pupils wide as coins, for always bristled. Whenever they passed the east hallway, he would growl, low, constant, almost mournful. By nightfall, the temperature dropped. The lamps flickered and failed, leaving the house a cave of sighing shadows. Outside, rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavy, drumming on the roof like distant footsteps. Elena sat at the kitchen table with a single candle burning beside her. She hadn't dared look at the door again. Not yet. At 3:07 a.m., the sound returned. A slow, dragging creak, wood protesting against something unseen. Milo arched and bolted under the bed, crying in a sound she'd never heard before, almost human. Elena's heart stuttered. "No," she whispered, "I won't." But her feet moved anyway. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. The candlelight flickered, bowing toward the dark end where the handle-less door waited. Its frame was cracked wider now, a breath of cold air spilling through, smelling faintly of iron and damp earth. Something moved behind it. Not quite a shadow, not quite human. Elena. Her name, whispered in a voice identical to her own. Her throat tightened. "Who are you?" From the gap, a soft hand reached through, pale, trembling. It wasn't ghostly. It looked alive. Milo leapt from behind, yowling, swatting at the hand. It withdrew. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then, from inside the door, came the faint sound of purring. Not Milo's. Lower, heavier. Elena fell to her knees, tears hot and sharp. "I just want to understand," she whispered. "Why me?" A whisper answered. "You opened it when you came back." And then, the door opened on its own. Inside wasn't a room. It was reflection. The walls shimmered like liquid glass, and in that mirror space, another Elena stood, smiling softly. At her feet sat another Milo, identical, but unmoving. "Stay," the reflection whispered. "You left us behind." Elena stepped forward, drawn as if gravity itself reversed. The air shimmered around her, and she saw her aunt's figure in the background, standing behind the reflection, eyes hollow, mouthing something soundless. "Close it." But it was too late. Milo darted forward, clawing at her leg, hissing at the mirror's self. His cry tore through the stillness like breaking glass. The reflection frowned. Then, suddenly, silence. The door slammed shut. When morning came, the storm had passed. The air smelled of lavender and dust once more. The villagers who came days later found the house empty, except for a black cat sitting quietly at the end of the east hallway, facing the door with no handle. Sometimes, they say, if you walk by at 3:07 a.m., you can hear two sets of footsteps pacing on opposite sides of the door, and the faintest sound of a woman whispering, "Milo, stay with me." And from the other side, a purr answers. Some doors are meant to stay closed, but curiosity always finds a way to open them. If this story sent a chill down your spine, like, share, and subscribe for more tales that keep you awake at 3:07 a.m. See you on the other side of the door.